Justin, when we look at Tyler Van Dyke, of course, he was a highly touted quarterback, but he wasn't anywhere close to being like some 5 star. I don't remember his rankings exactly, but he wasn't, I don't believe, as highly rated coming out of high school as Jake Garcia. But anyway, he obviously finds himself in the lineup in 2021 due to the De'Ara King injury. And then Jake Garcia got hurt against, I think, Central Connecticut. And then in comes TVD. He goes on this run of 350-yard, 3 to 4 touchdown games for 8 games. And all is well. And he comes into last season with all this momentum and hype about being one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. Well, the receivers let him down. Everything let him down. You know, there were reports that. So I'll just serve it up this way. When you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the nation coming back, don't you sit down with that guy and talk to him, both watch it on tape, but also have a conversation to figure out what does he like to do and what does he do best? And let's make that the foundation of our offense first and foremost.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of these guys have, will tell you, oh, I've got a playbook that's 1,500 pages, but we only use 30 of them every year. Like they've got so much stuff in there, just piles and piles of stuff, but we just use the things from it. So the terminology doesn't change. The personnel group, groupings and stuff doesn't change per se too much. You're not changing formation names, right? Motion names, all that stays the same. But you're figuring out of this, you can only learn so much and retain so much. So what can you carry into a game, that you can retain and really have? So you may not you might have 12 RPOs in your book, but you only bring 4 per game, right? I think Phil Longo talks a lot about that kind of stuff. Like there's only so much you can carry into each week and be really, really good at it. And no, you do get stuck in some weird spots doing that where you might not have stuff in, right? And so that does, kind of become an issue. But I think, like you said, I mean, if you had a quarterback and you go back and watch the tape, I mean, he was really good at throwing the corner route on smash, right? So dropping in the corner route there. Well, then you watch the tape and they're a smash here, maybe one there, but it wasn't as prevalent of in the playbook as you would have liked. Little things like that where you're wondering, why aren't you doing this and why are you forcing certain things? One thing that drives me crazy when you have younger quarterbacks, and I would say Stetson Bennett was obviously an older quarterback, it was clear, but with Van Dyke, he hadn't played that many games, right, going into last year. And so heading in last year, the younger quarterback, I don't like to turn their back. So when you're going to play action, as you go to hand off, take the snap, if I turn my back, my eyes are off of everything I want to see. They're off the coverage. They're off of pressure. They're off of who I'm actually, reading in my progression to check down. So my eyes get off of everything. You can easily play action just coming across your body and keep your eyes up the entire time, right? The choice that you're for Josh Gad to have his quarterback turning his back on his play action like that, to me, was a bad choice, right? Like there's 2 ways to do it: have him come across or have him turn around. Having a guy like that turn his back, I thought by the time he turned back around, a lot of times pressure was already in his face too. So things that work versus things you like. So you ask Tyler Van Dyke, what do you like? Obviously, he likes smash routes, right? I mean, whether it was the whip or just a little hitch or now or whatever, as long as that corner route was there, he liked it. There was some stuff over the middle of the end zone and the red zone that he really liked, right? With like little lookies and slants and some fin routes and stuff that he seemed to really like that worked really well for him. Why aren't you using that type of thing with him, right? Obviously, I mean, he was a little bit heavier. He looked a little slower. The whole team looked slow, and I think that kind of hurt him as well. Then there's things that you just say, you might like it, but we can't do it. And to me, that's turning your back on a play action with the young quarterback. Like, why would you do it, right? Why would you have a progression ever that doesn't have the ball coming out in waves? I like R4 from Dub Maddox, where it's rhythm, read, and rush routes. The rhythm comes out in like 1.8 seconds, right? So catch, drop. By the time you're at the back of that drop, the ball's coming out. That's a 3-step fade, right? That's a slant. That's a hitch. Stuff that has to just come right out, right? maybe even a 5-yard out, something like that. That's just turn, flip, throw. Then you could have your reads that you hitch up to 2 things, right? You hitch up to 1, it comes out. I want to say, I'm doing this off memory. 2.2, the next one's 2.6. Nothing's taking 3 seconds. If you go back and run back a lot of the stuff that they did, a lot of their stuff from the minute the ball's moved to the minute that whatever happens, they're in 3 seconds, and a guy hasn't broken on a route yet. They took so long last year, and I think that Shannon Dawson's going to change that because of his background, having worked with Dana, that he's going to get the ball out in the 1.8, 2.2, 2.8 type second stuff, and then having a rush route. In the air raid, the beauty is that, they don't use the back in protection a ton, which I think he's going to a little more just because of Mario and Parrish can block. But having the back swing a ton, you either cover him or you don't. So when you're sitting here, you ride, you read, you're looking, and then you get pressure, you just turn and throw, and the back's almost standing there open all the time. Like, watch any college game and look at the running back. They're usually just standing there, like, waiting and waiting and waiting, like they're doing nothing. It's almost – there's a reason Leach went to the swing to wheel, because eventually the guy's just standing there, like, waiting around. Like, what is he doing? Might as well go deep, right? I mean, Leach always trying to throw deep. That was kind of the progress that they started to get to. With that was just swing it and then kind of arrow it and then sort of wheel up. They started to wheel up and do this little curl even too. So interesting stuff that you could just see, and it was really frustrating. Like, why are they holding the ball so long? But it wasn't the quarterback all the time. At times it was the entire pass concept. To not have something come out in 1.8, there has to be a rush route, and there has to be something out in 1.8 seconds. Otherwise, I mean, I know Dana likes to throw what he calls, I think it's smoke. It's a slant and go type thing where it's just one person the route, but he max protects that. And so there's 7 or 8 guys blocking while that one route is trying to burn somebody deep, right? So that's a good shot play, but that can't be everything you've got, right? You've got to typically have progressions. They have to be broken down a lot quicker.
The quarterback turning his back on the defense, because that's what the play action calls for. That just stuns me, because as soon as you mention that reminds me of when I go on YouTube and I want to look up games that I watched 40 years ago. That you see that a lot, like in the 1980s. I don't see it that much now. And just to your point, I think you just threw out a timing figure out there. What's generally how long does it take for the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands? He's got to get the ball out of his hands in 3 or 3.5 seconds. It's got to take at least a second to turn your back to the defense. And then I got to think, as soon as you turn around, you've got to readjust your eyes, because guys are in completely different places than they were a second ago.
Sure. And there's a thing from the Air Force. It's John Boyd was a pilot, and it was called the OODA loop, OODA, OODA, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act. As my loop is going around, right, I'm trying to get your loop with breaks in it, right? So that's why you use motion, right? You're using motion to create a picture, and everybody's got to think real fast, essentially. Oh, shit. Like, he went in motion. Okay, wait a minute. We're in 4. Check 3, check 3, check 3. We're back here on 1. Check 3, check 3. All the linebackers got to bow over, bow. Now he comes back with speed option the other way, which Ohio State killed Michigan on 5 or 6 years ago, right? Putting trips to the one side, motioning the guy over. Oh, they're in man because Don Brown loves some man. And then just running speed option away from the trips or away from the quads even, and having no receiver out there, just running speed option back away from all that, which is a good trick. If you find a guy in man and that's it, all I got to do is block down and pull out, let the end come up. So the OODA loop is motion, could do it, shift. But I'm breaking my own OODA loop if my back gets turned to everything I want to see. I understand why you could do it with Patrick Mahomes and these experienced quarterbacks, although a lot of them are clearly in the gun a lot more now. And, there's some time is in a place, but again, why do it with a guy that's really getting into starting his 8th, 9th game, something like that at the time, and like you said, I mean, to see Vinny Testaverde do it for the Hurricanes in 1986 is a little bit different than seeing somebody do it now. People are faster now. everything is happening so quick. The way defensive players play, just how tall and explosive they are. Technology has changed so much in sports science. It's wild to see how fast these guys are and how just explosive. A guy that's 6'6", 260 is literally running like a 4.6, not this fake 4.3 stuff, but really running in the 4.6s and jumping, 28, 30 inches in the air. It's nuts. And to see that is like, in action. I always recommend that you find a way to get on the field once, like in life. Like stand don't even try an NFL one. If you stand down there, you're just going to be like, wow, these guys are the biggest people ever. Even go to a Division III college and get down on the field for a minute. They're huge, right? These are the biggest people. So with the OODA loop stuff, if my job's to get you off of your loop, right? That's why you run a switch route and have guys switch. So we have to communicate and talk. Why do you use motion? Why do people run slant arrow, things like that? It's the OODA loop. It's to get people's eyes off and to have them confused in the middle of their action. But if you're doing that to yourself, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Which is why I think Shannon Dawson's going to talk Mario Cristobal into making things simple, quicker, effective, and again, getting the ball out much faster.